Laura, we were here 3 hours ago.
We were.
What's she going to say?
Well, as I understand it, what she will say to MPs is on that, guess what, controversial issue of the backstop, which our viewers will be very familiar with by now, the insurance policy that the government have negotiated with the EU, which makes sure there be no return to a hard border on the island of Ireland if a trade deal can't be done by the end of 2020. In other words, it creates the possibility, if things go wrong in negotiations down the line, that Northern Ireland might be treated rather differently to the rest of the United Kingdom. That's what has caused such trouble. Now, what I understand is she's going to say in 10 minutes' time, I've heard people's concerns, I hear their worries, I'm going to talk again to the European Union about ways of making it completely clear that the backstop, if it happened, would be temporary and the UK wouldn't be locked in it forever. The problem is, of course, that through the course of these negotiations, that concern has been raised again and again. It's what the negotiators sweated blood and tears over trying to get. And it's not clear to me why now, if the Prime Minister basically asked for the same thing, she's going to get it this time.
Right. Well, in a moment, we'll play you a bit from Leo Varadkar, the Irish Taoiseach. But first of all, can I just show viewers this tweet from Guy Verhofstadt? He's the European Parliament's main representative, and he says, I can't follow anymore. After 2 years of negotiations, the Tory government wants to delay the vote. Just keep in mind that we will never let the Irish down. This delay will further aggravate the uncertainty for people and businesses. It's time they made up their mind. Hashtag Brexit. So, Gillian, what is she going to get that is going to substantially change the agreement that has been locked down in that withdrawal agreement on the Irish backstop?
Well, first of all, it's not unusual that negotiations go down to the wire, and they continue as well. So what's happened at the moment, if you read all the Hansard, the first 3 days of the debate, it was clear that a deal breaker potentially for a number of people was the Irish backstop. And why is it that something that's not supposed to be used, is an insurance policy, is only supposed to be temporary? Why is it people don't believe that? And I think the crux of the issue is, in Article 50 it says whatever's put in place is only supposed to be temporary, but I'm not sure everybody really trusts temporary in terms of the EU, because temporary can be an awful long time in terms of the EU. So it doesn't seem worth losing this deal for something that nobody wants to happen, that nobody thinks is permanent, and maybe it could just be explained better or described better so that people feel more comfortable that this thing, which isn't supposed to happen, if it does happen, is really not going to last a long time.
Or they just don't trust Theresa May to actually stick to that.
Who doesn't?
MPs, the Tory MPs who aren't voting for this.
Well, I guess they think it's not really. It's as it's written in the withdrawal agreement.
But why don't they believe it then? You've been out selling this deal. You and a fairly small but significant band of Tory colleagues have been defending this deal for weeks and weeks. And if anything, opposition has grown. You've lost the argument.
Honestly, I've listened to this argument so many times from different people, and actually normally what they're arguing about is not even the substance of the deal. It's either what they first believed in terms of they're arguing for the referendum position, or they're looking for something else out of it. Because even I spoke to somebody the other day who's in a Leave constituency who said, I can't possibly vote for this. I'm in a Leave constituency. I said, this is the closest to Brexit you get. Really? This is what you should be voting for. No logic.
But here's the thing, Gillian, and that's exactly what the Prime Minister was saying, and yet she's delayed the vote. So until this morning, all through the last 10 days, the Prime Minister's been saying, just as you have, this is the best deal, and this is it. And then today she says, oh, actually, it might not be it. I'm going to go back to Brussels. So how do you think your colleagues will see any more credibility in what she's saying today as what she said last week?
There's only two things that could happen. Either you go back to Brussels before the vote, or you lose the vote and go back to Brussels. There's only two things that can happen, right? That backstop is not well explained enough for people to feel comfortable with, particularly the DUP. So if it's not explained well enough, and yet it's supposed to be temporary and it's never supposed to happen, then that needs addressing.
Are you prepared to listen to this and have the backstop explained more clearly? Will that make you back the vote, John?
It's not a question of communications, it's a question of the content of the backstop, which simply doesn't work. And we know that there's been repeated assurances by the government, by the Prime Minister, that there will be no border either on the island itself or in the sea between ourselves and the Northern Ireland. What this agreement does, effectively, it makes us subject in Northern Ireland to a separate set of rules to the rest of the country. And that is an absolute assurance which was given by the Prime Minister and by the Good Friday Agreement. So this is not a question of communication, it's a question of a fundamental flaw in the proposal itself.
All right, well, let's have a look at what the First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has tweeted. So, at Jeremy Corbyn, she says, if Labour, as official opposition, lodges motion of no confidence in this incompetent government tomorrow, the SNP will support and we can then work together to give people the chance to stop Brexit in another vote. This shambles can't go on. How about it, John?
Look, I think in any part of the whole of our parliamentary history, the government would have already fallen because it can't even get its own finance bill through. That was always a question of a vote of confidence. The government would have fallen. The government has failed to govern. Yeah. Now, the question about the current regime is we have this new damned act of Parliament, which means you only get one shot, a vote of confidence, or vote of no confidence. And I think we are just watching carefully what she says at 3:30 and what happens in the next few hours, and then we'll make our decision as to our parliamentary tactics.
But you said you would call a vote of no confidence in the government. You've just said that the substance is completely wrong and you can't support it. Nicola Sturgeon is reaching out for you. Your members want you to do this. So do your MPs. Why don't you call a vote of no confidence in this government?
I think we need to be sure that if we only get one chance a year, your viewers may not know this, to do a motion of no confidence, we want to do it when the maximum leverage applies. And I don't know that it's this afternoon, certainly, but we're not going to, in any event, announce our policy in TV studios such as this.
No, more's the pity. But I mean, is that because?
John Trickett.
But that's because they can't win. They can't win a vote of no confidence.
I mean, the risk for Labour, of course, is if they push to a no confidence vote in the Prime Minister, that might be the only thing that you would unite the Conservative benches behind her. So it is an unpredictable course of action from them. I have to say, though, inside the Labour Party, there is a lot of frustration that leadership hasn't sort of been more proactive on this. There's a sense, and you know, notwithstanding also their range of opinion, shall I say, diplomatically inside the party on whether or not they should be straightforwardly pushing for another referendum. But I can just tell you, Joe, I've just got a bit more information about what we think the Prime Minister is going to say. I've been told that she's going to say she will see her counterparts in other member states before the Brussels summit on Thursday. That is what I'm told she's going to suggest. And also she will look for new ways of empowering the House of Commons to ensure that there's democratic legitimacy about the backstop. Now, eagle-eyed viewers might remember at the end of last week, an amendment was put forward that would have given MPs a bit more of a say, allegedly some kind of parliamentary lock, a vote on the way in and a vote on the way out of the backstop. But in all these things, it comes down to what's in the text. This is a quandary about a legal text, a withdrawal treaty that will become a binding law, and enough sort of political flummery around the sides might not be enough to do it. And there are some Tory MPs I've talked to in the last few hours who've sort of said it doesn't really matter what she says, in a sense, unless she ditches the backstop altogether, which she's just not going to do at this stage. She may never have the numbers to get this through.
Well, let's have a look at Arlene Foster, who has tweeted on exactly what you've been talking about. She is the DUP leader. Just finished a call with the Prime Minister. My message was clear. The backstop must go. Too much time has been wasted. Need a better deal. Disappointed it's taken so long for the Prime Minister to listen. These are your confidence and supply partners, Gillian, when it comes to passing key bits of legislation. They're not going to sign up to anything less than ditching the backstop. So what do you do?
You have to try and renegotiate. You know, when it gets down to the final deal-breaking issues, you have to lock yourself in a room and see whether it is worth doing something different or facing the inevitable loss of this deal in Parliament. And that is where this has always been the case. The Prime Minister needs to walk everybody up to the edge of the cliff, including the EU. They all need to look over it, and then they have to do the right thing. There is no reason why, logically, you would ever let this agreement not be put in place because of the badly worded lack of comfort that this thing couldn't go on forever. You just wouldn't let it happen in the commercial world.
Well, I mean,
that wouldn't happen at all.
But we were told that there was no other deal available.
Well, they're still saying that, to be fair.
We were told that the EU wouldn't change anything either. And there's over the weekend, Theresa May has 13 separate times said that there will be a vote tomorrow evening, a meaningful vote. She's now abandoned that. How can our negotiating partners trust a person who makes those pledges to the nation and then breaks them within hours?
How do Tory MPs trust somebody who's done that, who's marched everybody to the top of the hill? She said there wouldn't be a snap election. Then there was a snap election. She said there would be a meaningful vote tomorrow, and now it is being delayed, and she's called people to the Commons. We can see everybody gathering there in the chamber, obviously waiting with bated breath to hear what she has to say. Her authority has drained away.
These are such unprecedented times that people keep trying to compare it to other times in government. There is nothing to compare this to. This is the... And, you know, whoever it is that has to do this, nothing's going to change.
We're going to have to go straight into the chamber to hear what the Prime Minister has to say.